At the end of this presentation, if you get in touch with us, or get in touch with our colleagues at Bentham Science, to give you an email template that you can use, a Word document template that you can edit in order to effectively communicate with your editor what is needed to make sure your paper has the highest possible chance of of being passed out for review. So that's what we're aiming for in the publishing cycle at stage 6, that submission cycle, making sure that your article has the highest possible chance of getting sent out for peer review, and also controlling that process as an author, because you are going to make suggestions in your covering letter for who you think would be appropriate as a potential peer reviewer. Then, of course, you sit back and you wait for those review responses to come back from the journal. And this may take some time. Don't wait. If you're sitting there for more than 6 weeks, I would say, as a rule of thumb, if you have waited for more than 6 to 8 weeks at the maximum for comments to come back from a journal, write, communicate, get in touch with that editor and ask them for some feedback. We, again, can help you with this process. We can provide you with email templates. We can advise you on that process. At what point should you get in touch with a journal if you haven't gotten those review comments back? Don't wait. Communicate with journals. We often hear sad stories from colleagues who've waited for 1 year, 2 years, more than 2 years for review comments to come back. You must get in touch with the journal. You must be proactive, polite, communicative, get in touch with the journal and ask for some news about your paper, because very often, as we've already discussed, the academic editors are working researchers, they're working academics. They may have simply just forgotten about your paper, or they may need some more suggestions for suitable peer reviewers. However, when you do get your comments back, tips for responding to them from an editor's perspective are also very important. How you're going to respond to those comments that come back from peer review, how you communicate your responses to the journal will also significantly enhance your eventual chances of success. Make sure that your editors and peer reviewers feel good about your responses. If they feel good, then of course they're more likely to give your article a positive review. So here's some examples of things to say and things to not say when putting your review comments back into a journal. Thank the reviewers. Say good things about the comments the reviewers have made. We acknowledge, we concur. Thank you for the valuable comments. This valuable insight is much appreciated. These comments significantly enhance the quality of our work. Effective, positive communication, even if you don't agree with those comments. Always be polite. Always show your appreciation for the comments of peer reviewers. People are giving up their time, almost always without any payment, to work on your paper for eventual publication in a journal. So don't be rude, always be polite, and make sure you don't send journal editors emails like this. Here's a real example of an email that I received recently, and this is something that you don't want to do, because of course this kind of communication will significantly decrease your chances of eventual acceptance in your target journal. You can manage this process. You can effectively respond to review comments by following some of the tips and tricks that we present in this webinar and in other presentations in our training series, in our training courses. Give the editor an overall summary. Communicate at the top of your response document what changes you've made, and then intersperse your comments with the remarks of the reviewers and tell the editor what you've done. Be comprehensive, be polite, and be positive. And there are a number of examples in this presentation and in other presentations in our training courses that will help you to effectively communicate with editors in a positive, constructive way when you go back to them with reviewers' comments. Here is another template. We will provide you with this at the end of the presentation if you get in touch with us, how you can respond to the comments as you communicate with editors and make sure that your paper has the highest chance of eventual acceptance. We are now moving through that academic publishing cycle, and I hope that some of the tips, some of the tricks, and some of the ideas in this webinar are helping you to understand how English effective communication is so important at managing the publishing cycle, at getting your work into and through the academic publishing cycle. We've talked about what you should do, haven't we, if your paper is taking too much time in the system. Here's a template that you can use for inquiring about your article if you feel you've waited for too long, if your paper's taking too much time in the system. And again, get in touch with us. We'll provide you with this template and all of the others at the end of this presentation for free. It's a free gift from us to you in order to help you be effective as you communicate about your articles. Finally, then, let's talk about how to communicate if your paper gets rejected. Of course, this happens often. We often experience rejection as academics. In my experience, there's only really a handful of jobs you can have, maybe a salesperson, let's say, in which you'll get rejected more often than as an academic. So what to do if you get rejected, but you feel that you have been rejected unfairly? I would say that one key message, one key way in which you can communicate with editors, with journals, is to express that level of confidence about your work. If you feel you have been unfairly treated, write to editors, communicate with editors and tell them why. Give them evidence, give them feedback, give them contents, and help them understand why you have been unfairly treated in your opinion, and you can then hopefully make an appeal to the journal, give them evidence. Maybe you can ask for additional sets of reviews. And I can give you specific help with this if you get in touch again with us at the end of this presentation. You need to avoid a number of key mistakes that authors often make in the submission process, communication mistakes. These are examples of things not to do because they will significantly increase your chances of rejection. Try not to add authors to a paper once it's accepted. Authors often try to do this, and it immediately raises red flags for editors, and you then have a high chance of getting rejected. When you submit a paper to a journal initially, you are making a statement to that journal that all of the authors on the paper know about and support the submission beforehand. So making changes to authorship later on down the road is often very complicated. Journals hate having to deal with these issues. So keep that in mind as well when you make those final corrections to your documents. When you get those emails back from journals saying, here are the proof corrections, here are the document files, make sure you do this quickly and effectively. Be clear, effective, line by line comments for production, unambiguous. Keep your changes to a minimum and do it quickly and do it effectively. This is also important. Something else to keep in mind, you'll have to have up-to-date software. You'll be given a short deadline. You'll only be able to make 100% necessary changes. And don't forget that any changes to authorship or authorship order are very hard to make at this late stage. And you'll probably need signed permission from all current authors if changes are going to be made. So don't communicate badly, rudely with journals if you see mistakes in your proof. Quick, polite emails to the editor Get the issue fixed, do it as fast as possible, and don't panic, because of course online publications can easily be modified if the content doesn't change. So don't freak out. We get lots of rude emails from authors about changes made to their papers. These are often very minor and can be fixed at the journal submission stage before often the papers go online. So your final checks before submission, have a look at some of these checklists: editorial policies, publication ethics, and don't forget that for your submission, you're probably going to need an ORCID ID. These are very good ways to distinguish yourself as a researcher. Distinguish yourself in 3 easy steps. This is one way in which your research becomes visible to all other international colleagues. And let me say that submission systems, Editorial Manager, Scholar One, Open Journal Systems, they very often ask you now for an ORCID ID. So speed up that process. Consider getting yourself an ORCID ID. The most important point of this webinar today is that communication with editors is key. Here are some examples of bad emails. Here are some examples of good emails. Be polite, be constructive, give something back to the journal when you communicate, when you write to editors. Maximizing your success is key, making sure that your papers have the highest possible chance of eventual acceptance in your target journal. And so communication in English is very important to help you do that. And of course, if you have questions or any issues at any time, you can feel free to get in touch with us. Talk to our colleagues at Bentham Science. We have discussed the stages of the publishing cycle in this webinar presentation, and we have also discussed tips and tricks for good and bad communication, things to do and things not to do. Thank you so much for your attention. I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar presentation. My name is Gareth Dyke. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to check out the journals and ebooks that our colleagues at Bentham Science Publishers are dealing with. Have a great day.